Being JJK, the Limitless technique is one that is passed down in the Gojo clan. But what if Satoru didn't have access to it? For starters, his battle pattern would change. In a lot of fights, we see him rely heavily on Limitless, but without it, what becomes of Gojo? And is he still the strongest? Let's find out. For us to set this up, let's take a look at how this removal changes his childhood. The birth of Gojo in the original timeline was a marvel, as he was born with both the Six Eyes and Limitless technique, which is in fact a very rare occurrence. But in this timeline, Gojo is born with only one. Gojo's birth is still met with joy as he possesses a rare trait even in the Gojo family, but not everyone is happy about this. Because being born without Limitless in the Gojo clan would almost be like Maki being born without cursed energy. The Gojo clan has always prided itself on producing the ultimate sorcerer through the perfect combination of Limitless and Six Eyes. This combo has been their pride and power for generations, making them one of the three great Jujutsu families. So when Satoru is born and they realize he only possesses the Six Eyes without the Limitless technique, it would have been nothing short of shock for them. After the initial chaos of his birth, we skip to his early childhood, which would have been drastically different from the one we know. Born without Limitless, the automatic respect and awe that comes with being the full Limitless and Six Eyes inheritor all goes away. Instead of being treated as the golden child and future strongest sorcerer, Satoru would face immense pressure and skepticism from his own family. A young Gojo would have to work twice as hard just to earn a fraction of the recognition that original timeline Gojo received effortlessly. This struggle would shape him into someone completely different. His character becomes different, and he is no longer the carefree and arrogant Gojo we see in the canon. Instead, we would have a child determined to prove himself worthy to his family who sees him as incomplete. For the faction who actually believe in him, let's say he has a teacher who takes over his training. The training would be brutal and geared towards somehow pushing him to awaken Limitless, which is unheard of, but a determined Gojo would try his hardest, even though that's not how inherited techniques work. In the original timeline, Jujutsu High and the higher-ups took it as an honor to take him in and teach him, even though he later became a huge pain in the ass for them. In our timeline, Jujutsu High would still recruit him because the Six Eyes alone is extraordinarily valuable, but he'd enter the school with something to prove rather than as a celebrity student. His relationship with Geto would be fundamentally different too, since they'd be more equal in power at the start. This makes them actually forge an even stronger friendship, since Geto would be constantly overshadowed by an untouchable prodigy. In fact, Geto might become protective of his friend, who despite his talent would face constant scrutiny and underestimation from others around them. Imagine the scenarios where other students or even teachers would mock Gojo as the failed heir. School for him would not be as easy as our Satoru's was. The Gojo clan might even attempted to arrange a strategic marriage for Satoru, hoping to correct the bloodline in the next generation. They could pair him with someone from another powerful Jujutsu family in hopes of producing an heir with both Limitless and Six Eyes in a desperate attempt to restore their legacy. This added pressure would create even more resentment in young Gojo, fueling his desire to prove that he doesn't need Limitless to be exceptional. He would throw himself into mastering anything and everything he could about cursed energy manipulation, developing techniques that no one had ever seen before, using his perfect Six Eyes vision to analyze and create Jujutsu theory that would revolutionize the field. Gojo with something to prove becomes a very scary Gojo because of all the things he can accomplish. His Six Eyes makes him a pure technique genius. He begins mastering counters for domains, creating his own domain. In the canon, his domain came from Limitless, and without it, he would need to create another one, this time based on the Six Eyes. Anime Lover Boy here, mid-editing. If you're enjoying this video, subscribe and become part of the Anime Lover gang. And while you're down there, might as well leave a like as well. But first, let's break down what the Six Eyes actually does. The Six Eyes grants its user perfect curse energy control, enhanced perception and reaction speed so ridiculous that it wouldn't be an overstatement to call it precognition. Gojo wouldn't just be weaker without Limitless. He would be a completely different type of fighter, as we've seen throughout his development. Imagine a sorcerer with Toji's physical awareness and combat sense, but with the ability to see cursed energy perfectly and manipulate it. His mastery of the Six Eyes would make him become shockingly similar to Toji in his approach to combat. Don't worry, I'll explain. In the original timeline, Toji was a beast because of his heavenly restriction, which gave him superhuman physical abilities. When you think about it, Toji's whole thing is exploiting the smallest openings with perfect timing and precision when he has no other choice. This Six Eyes Gojo would develop the exact same mindset because he would see cursed energy with perfect clarity, just like Toji sees the physical world. With this enhanced perception, they would both be operating on a level of awareness that's frankly unfair compared to everyone else. The biggest similarity would be how they move in battle. If you remember how Toji fights, it's all about economy of movement, perfect timing, and not wasting a single action. These are exactly the qualities Six eyes would encourage in a limitless Gojo. He would become obsessed with efficiency, knowing that he can't just rely on anything else to block attacks. Gojo was a reckless fighter due to his reliance on Limitless. While this Gojo may never know what infinity feels like, he damn sure wouldn't want to become mincemeat for cursed spirits. Gojo would need to rely on cursed energy perception. His mastery of 6 eyes would also let him master other crucial aspects of Jujutsu. Gojo would begin mastering reverse curse technique at an early age, probably as a teenager. After studying up on what his eyes can do, he would go for a reliable way to keep himself alive in fights. He would be getting injured way more often than the original Gojo, so healing would become essential, and with 6 eyes perfect curse energy control, he'd take RCT to levels no one else would dream of, or at least in this generation. He would be able to heal injuries in the middle of combat without even pausing, just by using the absolute minimum curse energy needed to fix critical damage. He could do this while continuing to fight at full capacity. His 6 eyes abilities are limitless, and I mean no pun when I say that. He could develop techniques to partially heal specific areas rather than wasting energy on full body regeneration. He could heal wounds without draining his curse energy reserves. This efficiency would make him practically unkillable in a different way than Limitless does, because he could just keep repairing damage as long as his curse energy held out, which with 6 eyes would be basically forever, since he wouldn't be wasting it. He could also possibly become immortal just by constantly applying the right amount of RCT, but that's an extreme fan theory. Another thing that the 6 eyes would help him do is master domains. Without Limitless, Gojo couldn't create unlimited void, so he would develop something completely different based on his 6 eyes perception abilities. Maybe a domain that enhances his already perfect vision to see not just present cursed energy, but past and future flows too, predicting movements seconds before they happen. Or a domain that doesn't overwhelm opponents with information overload like unlimited void, but instead strips away all cursed energy manipulation except his own, creating a space where only someone with 6 eyes could effectively use Jujutsu. The possibilities will be endless. The really revolutionary part though would be domain counters. Since Gojo cannot rely on his own overwhelmingly powerful domain to trump others, he would become the absolute master of domain counters, probably inventing new ones beyond what we've seen in the series. His 6 eyes would let him see exactly how domains function at their core. He would understand their construction in ways no other sorcerer could, and perfect simple domain. This version of Gojo would approach domains like a master locksmith. With these skills, Gojo would still be considered a special grade sorcerer, but for completely different reasons than in the original timeline. He wouldn't be the untouchable god that we knew, but he would be the ultimate technique specialist, understanding Jujutsu on such a fundamental level. In this timeline, the Zenin clan would still fear him even without an inherited technique. Maki and Toji terrify the clan despite having 0 cursed energy, let alone a technique-inclined Gojo with perfect cursed energy control from 6 eyes. He would develop his combat IQ and raw talent to make up for the lack of Limitless, and he'd still rise to the top of the Jujutsu world just through different means. His fight with Toji would play out completely differently instead of that one-sided beatdown. After Gojo awakened his reverse curse technique, we get something much more brutal and physical. Gojo would have to outthink and outmaneuver Toji using his perfect curse energy control and 6 eyes to counter Toji's heavenly restrictions advantages. It would be bloodier, more strategic, and probably way more impressive in showing Gojo's genius. But the biggest change would be in Gojo's personality. Without Limitless as a crutch, he couldn't afford to be as arrogant or dismissive. He would be aware of his limitations instead of telling everyone how they're so much weaker. He would understand vulnerability firsthand, and this would make him a completely different teacher when he trains Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara. He would use much more practical advice, focusing on technique refinement and strategy rather than just pushing raw power. His whole worldview would shift from that of an untouchable god to someone who achieved greatness through perfect execution and technical mastery. And when Shibuya comes, we see a different type of Gojo. Without Limitless, Prison Realm wouldn't work the same way. Kenjaku would need a completely different plan to deal with Gojo. They would not just rely on him walking into a trap, as he was confident in his Limitless defense. This Gojo will be more cautious in nature. This would have helped him avoid the trap entirely, or maybe his different fighting style would mean he'd be vulnerable to different attacks. But one thing's certain, this version of Gojo would have survived Shibuya through his tactical genius rather than overwhelming power like in the original. The entire Shibuya incident would play out differently, with Gojo potentially helping to evacuate civilians and fight alongside other sorcerers instead of being sealed away. He would even face off against disaster curses and special grade curses, using pure technique to overcome their power. In the end, this version of Gojo would still be among the strongest sorcerers, but for completely different reasons, and the ripple effects throughout Jujutsu Kaisen would be massive. Would Geto still turn against Jujutsu Society if his best friend was more relatable and understood struggle better? Would Yuji and the others develop differently under a more practical mentor? Would the higher-ups respect Gojo more or fear him less without his overwhelming power? And most importantly, will this version of Gojo actually be happier, more fulfilled as a person rather than isolated by his own strength? One thing is for sure, the world of Jujutsu Kaisen would be unrecognizable without Gojo's technique as we know it.